You don't expect a storm to hit on a quiet morning, but sometimes it does. And for me, the storm didn't come from the sky. It came from a woman who walked into a peaceful home and tried to rewrite history. My name is Keith Urban. I wasn't born into the family that raised me. I married into it. But you'd never have known that if you'd seen how Evelyn, my late mother-in-law, looked at me, or how she talked to me, or how she held my hand during the last days of her life. She was more than family. She was home. And when she passed away, everything she'd built, everything she loved, should have been protected, honored. Instead, it became a battleground. Evelyn was one of those rare people who made you feel heard when she listened, and safe when she smiled. She grew up with little, raised 2 kids mostly on her own, and somehow still made room to care for me when I married her son, Matthew. Matthew died in a car accident 5 years ago. I didn't think I'd survive the grief, but Evelyn pulled me through. "You're still my son," she told me one night after the funeral. "You always will be." She wasn't one for dramatic declarations, but that night she made one, and she kept it. She invited me to move in with her when I couldn't keep up with rent, cooked for me when I forgot how to eat, left the porch light on when I came home too late from work. And I stayed, not out of obligation, out of love. I became her caregiver in the final 2 years of her life. Doctor's appointments, medication schedules, emergency runs in the middle of the night. I didn't hesitate. I didn't keep score. I just showed up, because that's what family does, or so I thought. The morning she passed, the house was quiet. I held her hand, whispered that it was okay to go, and watched her take her last breath with dignity and peace. I thought that moment would be the hardest part. I was wrong. The hardest part came 2 days later, when Pamela, Evelyn's daughter, and my sister-in-law, stormed into the house like she owned the place. I was in the kitchen making tea when I heard the front door open, hard and loud. "Where is it?" she barked. I blinked. "Where's what?" "The will, the keys, the safe, everything. This is my house now." I set down the kettle slowly. "Pamela," I said carefully, "I'm still living here. This was Evelyn's home. She just passed." She rolled her eyes like I'd said something ridiculous. "She was my mother. You're just the leftover. You married in. That doesn't make you blood." The words hit me like a slap, but I didn't flinch. "I was here," I said. "You weren't." She laughed bitterly. "Because I have a life, a job, a real family." I stared at her, and Evelyn was part of that, or was supposed to be. She snorted and pushed past me, heading down the hall like she owned the place. I followed, heart pounding. "She left a will," I said. "Everything's already arranged." She spun around. "Then show me right now." I didn't back down. I walked to the drawer where Evelyn kept her paperwork and pulled out the envelope she had sealed and signed a year earlier, in front of her lawyer. Pamela snatched it from my hand like a raccoon grabbing food. She tore it open, scanned it fast, and then her face fell. "You've got to be kidding me." I said nothing. Because I already knew what it said. Evelyn had left me the house, the land, the antique piano she cherished, and her blessing. She left Pamela a small trust, enough to be fair, but not enough to control. Pamela looked up at me, eyes wild. "This isn't right." "It's what she wanted," I said. "She was confused. You manipulated her." My jaw clenched. She was clear, coherent, and firm when she signed that. She talked to her lawyer. She made the choice. She was old. She was wise. Silence. Then she spat the words that would ignite the next fire. "You don't deserve any of this. You're not even real family." And just like that, I knew what this was. Not grief, not confusion. Jealousy. Because she hadn't shown up. And I had. And Evelyn saw that, felt that, and made her decision with a heart full of truth. But Pamela wasn't ready to face that truth. So she came to tear mine down. And I wasn't going to let her. Not this time. After Pamela read the will, her expression shifted from shock to rage in less than 5 seconds. Her face tightened, her hands shook, and then she balled up the will and threw it on the floor like it was garbage. "This isn't over," she hissed. I picked it up calmly, flattened it out, and slid it back into the folder. "It is," I said. "It's signed, it's witnessed, it's valid." She took a step closer, finger pointed. "You manipulated her. You waited until she was weak. You took advantage." I didn't flinch. "I cared for her. You didn't even visit for her last birthday." "She didn't invite me." "She didn't have to." Pamela didn't respond. Instead, she turned and stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the pictures on the wall. But I knew it wouldn't be the last time I saw her. I just didn't expect her next move to come so fast, or so vicious. The next morning I got a call from Evelyn's lawyer, Mr. Donovan. "She's contesting the will," he said, voice calm but weary. "Claiming undue influence, emotional manipulation. Says you isolated her from family." I nearly dropped the phone. "She isolated herself," I said. I never blocked anyone. I begged Pamela to visit. Evelyn wrote her letters. She never answered. I believe you, he said, but we'll need evidence. I exhaled. I kept everything. Emails, texts, cards from Evelyn, thanking me for caring for her, photos of us from birthdays, holidays, even doctor visits, voice memos Evelyn left on my phone, full of clarity and love, and one handwritten letter she gave me 6 months before she passed. Keith, she had written, don't ever let anyone tell you this home isn't yours. You made it a home again. You gave me peace in my last chapter. That letter? I framed it. And now it was about to speak louder than any courtroom drama Pamela could stage. Still, the tension grew. Pamela began calling other relatives, spinning lies. He took advantage of her. She didn't know what she was signing. He tricked her with charm. Some believed her, some didn't. But they all started whispering. I felt it at the grocery store, the tight smiles, the quiet glances. Even the pastor from Evelyn's church asked to pray over the situation. But I stayed silent, because grief will twist people, and lies eventually trip on their own feet. One night I found a box on the porch. Inside were old photographs. Me, Evelyn, and Matthew, laughing around a campfire from years ago. And tucked behind them was a note in Evelyn's handwriting. Family isn't just who's born into it. Sometimes it's who shows up when it counts. E. No signature, no date. But I knew her handwriting. She'd left it behind on purpose. And somehow I knew that would be the anchor I needed. Pamela's next move was worse than I imagined. She showed up at the house with 2 men in suits, claiming they were evaluators, that she had a legal right to appraise the property before filing a claim. I met her at the door. You're trespassing, I said. I'm exercising my right, she snapped. I held up the will. This says otherwise. She stepped forward, furious. You don't get everything just because you played nurse for 2 years. I stared at her. I didn't play anything, I said. I loved her. You resented her. And now that she's gone, you want to rewrite your absence into a legacy. She slapped the will out of my hand. You're an outsider. And yet she trusted me more than she trusted you. The men behind her looked uncomfortable. She turned. We're leaving, for now. And they did. But I knew what was coming next. Court. And I was ready. The court date came faster than I expected. Pamela was determined to drag Evelyn's name, and mine, through the mud. She arrived dressed like she was auditioning for a soap opera. High heels, dramatic black suit, crocodile tears waiting behind her perfectly curled lashes. I, on the other hand, came with one thing on my side, the truth. Her lawyer started strong, calling me manipulative, calculating, and strategic. They painted a picture of a grieving widow who moved in to take control of a lonely old woman's assets. But I had been ready. When my lawyer stood, he didn't shout. He didn't posture. He simply pulled out a folder and began laying out the story Evelyn had written in her own words, through cards, letters, medical directives, and even a recorded statement she made at the request of her lawyer 6 months prior. In that video, Evelyn looked straight into the camera and said, I am leaving my home to Keith because he was the one who stayed when everyone else disappeared. He didn't ask for anything. He gave me everything. Pamela's face turned red. She stood, yelled at the judge, claiming it was faked, that I had coached her, that this was all some elaborate scheme. But the judge saw through it. So did everyone else. Outside the courtroom, a woman approached me. She was older, soft-spoken, wearing a church choir pin. I used to visit Evelyn every week from the church, she said gently. I just want you to know. She always spoke highly of you. She used to say you were her second son, the one she actually liked more. I laughed, even through the sting behind my eyes. I always wondered what people thought, I admitted. She made it feel like I was her only family sometimes. The woman smiled. You were, when it mattered. The ruling came 2 weeks later. Pamela's claim was denied. The will was upheld in full. The house, the estate, everything Evelyn left behind, it remained exactly where she wanted it to. With me. I sat on the front porch the day I got the news, Evelyn's favorite mug in my hands, filled with cold coffee I'd forgotten to drink. The wind picked up, rustling the trees, and for the first time since her passing, I felt peace. But Pamela? She didn't take the loss quietly. She blasted her rage across social media, claimed the system was rigged, that Evelyn was pressured, that I was the villain. Some people believed her, but most didn't, because the truth, it has a way of making itself known, especially when you've lived it. 1 week later, I found a box outside the front door. No note. Inside were items Pamela had taken years ago from Evelyn's attic. Photo albums, an old brooch, and a dusty music box that still played the first few notes of You Are My Sunshine. She'd returned them. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was surrender. Or maybe it was her way of saying you win. But it didn't feel like winning. It just felt like finally being heard. I spent the weeks after the court ruling in quiet recovery. Not just physically, but emotionally. It's strange how grief can be interrupted by conflict. How mourning someone you love gets tangled with defending your right to love them in the first place. Now that it was over, I let the silence of the house settle around me like a warm blanket. This was Evelyn's house. Still smelled faintly of her cinnamon tea and lavender lotion. Still creaked in the hallway where she used to hum under her breath. But it was also my house now, and I wanted to honor her in a way that didn't just protect her memory, but continued it. I started with the garden. Evelyn used to call it her patch of peace. After her arthritis worsened, she couldn't tend to it herself, so I did it for her. She'd sit on the porch with a wide-brimmed hat and iced tea while I knelt in the dirt, pulling weeds and planting tomatoes. Now I planted wildflowers. She'd once told me, "Flowers don't care where you come from, they just bloom." That felt right. I opened the doors of her piano room too, something we hadn't done in months. The dust was thick, but the keys still worked. I sat down one evening, played a few soft chords, and felt her presence like a whisper on my shoulder. "You're home," it seemed to say. I began donating some of Evelyn's things to local shelters and libraries, the ones she'd marked for giving before she passed. I delivered books, clothing, her old sewing machine. With every item, I left a little note. From Evelyn, shared with love. It felt good. But it wasn't until I received a letter in the mail that I realized how deep her impact truly was. It was from a young woman named Lila. She was a nurse who had taken care of Evelyn during one of her hospital stays a year prior. "She told me all about you," the letter read. "Said you were her anchor, that you reminded her what love looked like when people stopped pretending." I folded the letter slowly. Tears came before I could stop them. I never heard from Pamela again. Not directly, but I saw her name pop up here and there, trying to sell a tell-all story to a gossip blog, leaving bitter comments on local news posts. Eventually she stopped. Maybe she got tired. Maybe she realized no amount of noise could undo what Evelyn had written in stone, with her will, her words, and her heart. Either way, I stopped checking, because some battles aren't worth revisiting, especially when you've already won the one that mattered. Now, I sit on the same porch where Evelyn once sat, the wind playing through the wind chimes she hung herself. There's a plaque near the garden now, nothing fancy. Just her name, a few dates, and a line I chose myself. She loved deeply, and was loved even deeper. People still ask me, "How did you get the house? Weren't you just the in-law?" And I always smile. I wasn't just anything, I say. I was Keith. I showed up. I stayed. And in the end, that's what made all the difference. Because family isn't just who you're born to. Sometimes, it's who you hold on to when no one else will.